You're listening to the Integrative Health Simplified podcast with Kari, Coody, pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. Here we talk all things straightforward and honest when it comes to holistic health and simplifying your best steps forward while eliminating all the gimmicks and confusion. Leave the overwhelm at the door and get ready for impactful action steps that get to the real root of your issue and actually move the needle in your health. Let's dive into the show. Hello guys, and welcome back in for the third episode of this series all about underlying infections. And today we're going to be talking about mold. And I know mold can be a super in-depth, confusing topic. And there's so many different opinions, and I'm definitely not going to get into the depths of all the things. I just want to give you some good factual information about mold and a few things that you could do, easy things around your home that can really cut down on the mold exposure that you have, and just some tips and tricks. How about that? So mold, what you need to know. That is the title of this podcast. So mold is, it's common, and it's often a misunderstood issue that can really impact our homes, our health, and our environment. And so I kind of just want to discuss what are some of the symptoms of mold, why does it matter, and give you some really good tips on how to prevent and manage mold problems on a simple scale, not on a large scale. I found a ton of mold in my home. That's not what this episode is going to be about, although there are so many other resources out there that you could dive into with that. But first off, I'm not a mold expert, but I have learned a good bit about mold because I have had some clients that have had mold, and it's a really, I don't want to say it's like a complicated topic. Mold actually just makes every issue that you have worse. It's a irritant, if you can think about it like that. If it gets in the body, if you have a lot of mold and mycotoxins are being released in the areas that you live or work in, it can just really invade the body and make, like I said, issues that you may have already had worse. It just causes a lot of inflammation, if that makes sense. So what is mold? Mold is a type of fungus that reproduces through tiny spores. It can reproduce super, super quickly, and it thrives in damp, dark, and warm conditions, making it a common household problem. A lot of, schools and businesses also have this problem. It can actually come in a variety of colors, black, green, white, orange, and it can be a little bit tricky sometimes to determine where mold would grow and if you have mold in your house and all of that. But the damp, dark, and warm conditions, if you think about where those are in your home, that might be places to look and places to start. So why mold matters? Mold exposure can lead to a range of pretty significant health problems. Respiratory issues are a big one, allergies, skin irritations, things like that. And so if you have more of a compromised immune system, you're just going to have a harder time with something like mold. Because really, if you think about it, just like with any of the things that I've talked about, we are exposed to these things sometimes on a daily basis. But it really just depends on the severity of the mold and also how healthy your body is as a whole. Because our bodies can get rid of mold, but if it's a really good host for mold to stay around, just like I was talking about with the parasites issue, it's just going to stick around and your body's going to have a hard time getting it out via detox pathways. And so I wanted just to mention some of the most common symptoms of mold. It's a fairly short list, unlike the parasite list. So fatigue is a really big one just because it does cause so much inflammation and it's just an irritant. So it does cause the body a lot of fatigue, weakness, headaches, light sensitivity, memory issues, or trouble finding words, morning stiffness and joint pain. Skin issues are a really big one. Breathing issues are a very big one with mold. Mood issues, chronic cough, IBS, classic allergy symptoms or mast cell activation syndrome. That's a super big one with mold just because it does cause issues with your body breaking down histamines. Post-nasal drip. Air hunger can even be one just because of the way that it affects your respiratory system. Urinary urgency, the bladder is very, very attacked by mold. It just, again, it's sort of an irritant, so it can really irritate the bladder lining, all of those things. And so chronic UTIs are a really big link to mold. And even alopecia. And so I would say the top 3 things that you can kind of think about when it comes to if mold might be an issue with some of these, chronic sinus infections, chronic UTI, like I mentioned, and then chronic ear infections. Those are 3 things that if you're just kind of like, I don't know why I keep getting these things, you really might want to look into mold, see if you're working in a moldy building or if somewhere in your house might be growing mold. Alzheimer's, memory, brain issues, you did hear me mention that in the lineup. That is a big one just because it causes neural inflammation. So that would make sense with just the brain inflammation and memory issues. Brain fog, of course, can go with that. Often misdiagnosed, but actually mold is sort of at the root of it, would be IBS, pain syndromes like fibromyalgia, and then Lyme. So that's just something that you might want to consider if you have those things going on. You might really want to look into, is mold an issue for you? And so, like I mentioned at the beginning, mold is actually a spore fungus. And so when you see mold, it's a colony, and it's the mycotoxins of that mold that create our issues. And so it's kind of like a fungal poison. It's being dispersed as a survival mechanism for the mold. And so it can really just make your body just way more inflamed whenever you are around those mycotoxins. And it just really aggravates everything. That's just a really good way to think about mold. If you have other underlying infections or if you just already have issues, it's just going to make them worse. And so there are 3 common types of mold, Aspergillus, Penicillium, and Stachybotrys. And so those are the most common types. And then there are the 3 most common types of mycotoxins as well. This would be ochratoxin, aflatoxin, and trichotheces. And that's black mold. I know you've probably heard of black mold. That would be the sort of the scientific name of that. And I probably didn't pronounce that right. But we really get exposed to mold through inhalation. We can be exposed to mold through the skin, but typically it's inhalation. And it can really just cause a chronic inflammatory response syndrome, CIRS. Again, it just causes so much inflammation in the body. And this is something that really affects our mitochondria, and our mitochondria are the powerhouse of our cell. That's what creates energy. It's where ATP is made. And so whenever we're exposed to mold and mycotoxins, it actually shuts down the mitochondria and it stops that production of ATP. And so this really stops your ability to heal or detox, which are obviously 2 really big things. Detox being, to me, one of the biggest, because again, if your body's able to detox, then whatever you're exposed to, your body's going to be able to handle it. And so the fact that mold shuts down your ability to detox, that's a really big deal, and why you start to see a lot of other issues pop up along, with the mold issue. And so it actually shuts down phase 1, 2, and 3 detox. And so this is the way we detox out, things that we come in contact with, like chemicals or pesticides. It also shuts down your ability to detox hormones. So a lot of times you're going to start seeing hormonal related issues get worse with, if you're exposed to mold. And so it is one of the top 3 drivers of autoimmune responses as well. It destroys the gut lining. And so that, again, is going to lead to leaky gut and a lot of autoimmune issues and things like that. And so those are just some symptoms, some things to think about when it comes to mold. But now I just kind of want to let me first though, say, how do you test for mold in your body? I'm not going to go over all the ways that you can test for mold in your home. I didn't want to really get bogged down with that. I do though want to just sort of give you another little plug for something that's coming. If you want, like, you love this podcast, but you kind of want just to go the next step as far as maybe put some of the pieces together with how all of these things that I'm talking about fit together, and maybe go deeper into the how, like, how do you address these things? Because sometimes I talk some about it, but other times I don't, just to keep it at a really simplistic level. But I do have something coming that I think you're going to be really excited about that goes one level deeper than this podcast. So stick around. But the best way to test if you have things showing up in your body related to mold would be through the urine. And there's what's called a mycotox test. That's the test that I like to use. It's from Great Plains Lab, and it's a great way to determine what type that you might have. And then, of course, we can suit the roadmap back to health based on that. So you don't 100% have to have that, but if you really want to have a definitive test, that's the best one. So what do we do about mold? You really, obviously, if you think you have mold in your home, you want to identify the source, and might be, where you can see it physically, or you might need to obviously get someone out to your house to try and determine if you have mold, what type, and then, if they can do remediation, that would be great. There's so many different scenarios. That's why I'm not going to get into, the nuts and bolts with all of that, because there is so many different scenarios. So someone that's trained in that, a company that's trained in that, you would want to contact. So identify the source. Make sure you have an air purifier. I think this is something that maybe we overlook. An air purifier can help with a ton of different things, not just mold, but it does clean the air. It can clean the air, viruses and pollutants and mold and things like that. So I really like the Air Doctor. I have one in my home. I'm looking to get a couple more. So I'm going to put the link for that if you want to check that out in the show notes in the description of this video. Mold sometimes isn't that easy to get rid of. Of course, can be complicated. They have a lot of defense mechanisms. So that's something that you kind of want to consider when, you identify the source and are kind of taking steps. But humidity is a big deal when it comes to mold, because mold does grow easily in wet and damp conditions. So there are things that you can do to monitor humidity. You can get a water drip monitor. You can put those under sinks, things like that. And that's something that you might want to consider just as a preventative measure. I'm going to consider some of these things in the next few months to a year. Obviously there are steps that we take in our health and things that we prioritize over others. So that might be something that you want to prioritize in the future as well. So let's talk about treatment at a very basic level. So you just want to make sure that your body's detox drainage pathways are open. I talked about that on the first 2 episodes because it's super duper important. You want to hydrate well. You want to be able to sweat every day, move, obviously, just movement. That could obviously be combined with sweating. Sometimes it's not, though. Red light is actually a way that you can strengthen your mitochondria. That is something that you might want to look into. Castor oil packs. I do love castor oil packs. I'll actually put a blog that I created all about a castor oil pack and its benefits and how it works. I'll put that in the show notes in the description of this video. That can really help the liver, which is obviously a detox, like drainage organ. Rebounding just helps get your lymph system moving, which is really like the way that a lot of these things get to where they need to go and get out of your body. Those are all really kind of just foundational things that really help if you are exposed to mold, just to help try to get those things out. Gallbladder, I find, is one of the key organs in detoxing mold. It's one of the main drainage organs, and bile is how we get rid of fungus. And so that's just something that you might want to consider really targeting if you have been exposed to mold, or you just, really want to, ensure that your drainage is working properly, our gallbladder does tend to get backed up, and it is very associated with hormonal issues. So if you feel like you have a lot of hormonal issues, because estrogen loves and feeds fungus, so it kind of just is like this. If we're not properly getting estrogen out, because of our liver and gallbladder, then it's just going to recirculate and just feed that fungus. So that's something that you might want to consider. And so lastly, I just want to mention diffusing oils and using oils to clean with. This has been one thing that has been very beneficial for me over the last 10 plus years. I've done a lot of research on essential oils, taught a lot of classes, and essential oils are super good for combating things in the home. And so cleaning with these versus cleaning with, conventional cleaners, obviously you cut down on the chemical load, but another big benefit of using essential oils to clean with is that they do kill off mold and mycotoxins and fungus, bacteria, things like that a lot of other cleaners don't. And so using them to clean with, diffusing them in the air can actually kill off some, virus, bacteria, mold in the air. So diffusing essential oils can be really, really helpful. And also using them in your, like washing dishes in your dishwasher, and then using them in laundry can actually help protect your pipes. If you're using oils in those products, to clean your dishes and your laundry, it can actually protect your pipes from mold. So I love the Abode blend that's in a lot of the cleaning products that doTERRA has, which is the line that I use. And so I'm going to put those if you want to consider looking into using some of those. That's just, to me, that's really one easy thing that you can do. You're already going to be cleaning, you're already going to be washing clothes. So just add that in as one additional step to help just, keep your home mold free. And so I hope this episode has been helpful. Mold is definitely a beast sometimes, and if you find mold in your home, you definitely want to contact someone that is trained to remediate properly and to just make sure that because it's really hard to heal when you're living in mold. And so I wanted to give you some more information about mold and some really basic things that you can do. But if you have a serious mold issue, then you're going to want to take it to the next level. So I hope this has been helpful though. At a really simplistic level, mold does matter. And so hopefully you learned some things in this episode, and I will see you on the next one. If this episode has served you in any way, I would love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways over on Instagram and tag me at Kari Coody. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so we can continue to learn and grow together.